Hello, welcome back, America, to another episode of the weekly stretch or the weekly market stretch. We're here talking today about the yoga of investing. So we're going to be talking about how things have been happening in the 1 day, the 5 day, the 1 month, the 6 month, and the 1 year in the major indexes. Now, as you recall, the major indexes that we like to watch are the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is the oldest of the American indexes, made up of approximately 30 of our blue chip stocks. We also track the S&P 500, which is how many companies? 500 of the largest American companies in the United States and that are publicly traded. And the NASDAQ 100. What differentiates the NASDAQ 100 from the S&P 500? Well, the NASDAQ 100 is the top 100 companies in the NASDAQ, but we take out the financial companies. Those are the 100 biggest non-financial companies in the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ 100 started around 1984, the S&P 500 about 1957, and in the early 1800s, I think around 1887 or so, we started the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So today we're going to take a look at how the major indexes in America have been doing this last week with all this turmoil. Remember, our favorite president almost got ended. According to the news, whether you believe it was a true or fake, staged or real, I don't know, I kind of think it probably was a real thing. Scary how people want to murder people who don't agree with them nowadays. But anyway, I'm glad that we didn't have our government turnover. Been enough government turnover recently. Today's news, people have been wondering how the economy's doing with all the turnover and government turmoil happening in the Strait of Hormuz in Iran. What's been going on with that? Well, recently there was a 60-day rule in Congress about funding the conflict with the American troops there. So a pullback. There was something about, and perhaps a withdrawal or ceasefire that says that we're still under that 60-day limit. As far as I know, the blockade still continues with the Strait of Hormuz. Interesting news as the prices of oil, I believe, continue to go up. We have heard that the UAE is pulling out of OPEC and pumping its own oil through a pipeline to bypass the blockade. Strange thing, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Would you believe it? Well, now we're going to be taking a look at how the markets have fared during all this crazy turmoil in the markets this week. A lot's been going on for those who are awake and paying attention. Let's see what's happened in the last 1 day. Well, the Dow Jones is down 0.31%. So that means if you were in the market, don't panic yet, Chicken Little, but the market's down 0.31, which means if you had $100 in the market, you would be down 31 cents. I'm not going to quite freak out and sell everything yet. The market was down today, so it closed down today in the Dow. Let's look at the 5 day, and this is May 1st, the 5 day. We're actually up an amazing 0.79. I don't know if that's really that amazing, but if you had $100 in the index tracking the Dow Jones Industrial Average, you would have made 79 cents. Overall, even though the day was down, the week was up. Let's take a look at the 1 month. Oh my gosh, the 1 month, would you believe it? 6.3% in just a month. Now imagine if it did that for 12 months straight. We would be up 72, 76%, whatever that ends up being, some incredible amount, nearly 75%. But as we know, when you invest in the stock market, some days are down. Some weeks are up, some weeks are down. Some months are up, some months are down. Well, I think you get the idea what I'm saying. So just pay attention, but we're probably not going to see every week being up this year. Let's take a look at the 6 months, because in the 1 month, we're up 6.3%. A lot of people consider 8% to be good for a market year. We almost did that in 1 month. Well, the 6 months didn't do quite as well. Those 6 months, we only did 4.57%. So that means where we were 1 month ago was not quite as high as where the stock market was 6 months ago. A little bit of downturn in between there. Kind of in between that 5 months was a little bit rocky. But anyway, 6 months we did 4.57%. And then for the 1 year, now if you're like me, a long-term investor, I like to look at the 1 year, the 5 year. That's what really gets me interested. I'm not too much of a day trader. But the 1 year, we did an amazing 21.46%. So almost as much as we expect on average for 3 years. Because remember, if the average is 8% a year, 3 times 8 is 24. But we did 21.46% in 1 year. gosh, with this tremendous political change sweeping through the country, this new president coming in, old president, new president, old and new president. Our new president's quite old. Well, anyway you want to think about it, nobody really expected with the terrible Trump tariffs, the shutting down of the Strait of Hormuz, all these different things that are happening, that the economy would actually be up 21.5%. I wouldn't have predicted it. I'm not quite sure exactly how the wheels are in motion, the higher levels of the economy. Seems like with Trump at the helm, some incredible stuff's happening. I don't know if he's the only one to credit or blame. A lot of people have been talking about that guy, even trying to take shots at him. Well, anyway, I hope they stop with all that. But now the S&P 100 over the one day has actually been up 0.29%. All right, now some people are talking about one particular stock that they like, one of America's favorite stock, Apple stock. And when we look at Apple stock in the last one day, Apple was up 3.24%. I heard some people say that recently there was a review and an earnings release for all the top companies in America, the S&P 500, and that it was much more favorable than people thought it would be. So that's good news. So Apple stock in the one day actually up 3.24%. In the 5 day, it's actually up 4.76% a day. So that could be part of what's affecting the S&P 500. In fact, I know Apple is one of those stocks. Now let's take a look at the 5 day for the S&P 500. We are up 1.08%. So even though we're up about 0.3% for the 1 day, on the 5 day we're on average about 2%. I don't know if I'm going to get like super excited, but it is good news that in the last 1 week we've been up 1.08%. If we did that every week for a year, say there's about 50 weeks in a year, the stock market would be up 50% overall. Wouldn't that be amazing? But we know the stock market's not always up every week or down every week. So we're going to take a look at the longer haul. For the 1 month, we're up almost 10%, 9.96% with the S&P. Incredible. So let's take a look at the 6 month. It's kind of the same story as the Dow. 6 months ago, the Dow might have been higher than it was 1 month ago, because 6 months ago, you only have a 5.52% increase, whereas 1 month ago, it was almost a 9% increase. So judging back from point to point, that's how you figure that out. Now, the 6 month change was about 1% a month, 5.52%. The 1 year change in the stock market, would you believe it? More than 8%, almost 10% multiplied by 3. So if the stock market was doing incredibly well, which a lot of people think 10% is incredibly well, this did triple doing awesome. Triple awesome. 29%, the S&P 500 over the past year. What an incredible economy we've been living in this last year. Okay, now if you're living in Iran right now, my condolences to you, but the American economy, for whatever reason, which they say isn't really that connected to the Iranian economy, is two separate things, but the American economy is doing a gangbusters. I feel sorry for some of the people who are suffering right now. My heart goes out to those folks. Now we're going to take a look at the final index today. We're going to be looking at the NASDAQ 100. Today is up almost 1%, 0.94%. On the 5 day, up 1.58%, almost up 1.6%. So that means if you had $100 in there, you would have made like $1.60, right? Now if we look at the 1 month, up 15.36%. Oh my goodness, almost like 2 years of progress if we use that 8% number as being normal. Now over the 6 month, the NASDAQ 100 is only up 6.69%. So remember, that means if you went back 6 months ago, it would have been higher than the stock market was 1 month ago. But still up almost a year's worth of progress in 6 months. But let's take a look at the 1 year. Over 1 year, it has come up with an amazing 40%. That means if you had $100 in the stock market, you would have been up $40.50 or $40.05. If you had $1 million in the stock market, you would have been up $400,050 if you were tracking the NASDAQ 100. Hey, not a bad way to earn money. I can't wait till I get my first 10 million in the stock market. How about you? Maybe we won't have to work if we do that. I think that might be called retirement. I don't know why people like that Elon Musk can't get it through their head. Maybe maybe they should retire. He's having too much fun trying to earn his first $1 trillion. I'll tell you, when I was a kid, it seemed like $1 million was a lot of money. Nowadays, I think it's $1 billion. The ultra rich are thinking about trillions of dollars. Well, I hope you enjoyed the stock market update this week. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one, the next market stretch, as we practice the yoga, which means we mindfully watch the market on a weekly basis, but we don't get too stressed out about every little change every little day. Once a week, we take a look at the market stretch and we appreciate the yoga of investing. Stay tuned, friends. We'll see you in the next one. If you need help with your finances or your taxes, feel free to reach out to me, Max Drew, your friendly neighborhood CPA. We'll catch you in the next one. Thank you, guys. Goodbye.
Follow, message us, or scan the QR code on the screen to learn more.